You undoubtedly imagine that women's lives under Genghis Khan were very miserable if you have ever bothered to think about it. You would be excused for thinking that too. Why would you assume that a violent tyrant like Genghis Khan would treat women any differently when most ancient societies do not exactly have a stellar record for doing so? But shockingly, that wasn't the case. Actually, in Mongol society, women were really valued, and husbands were supposed to give their wives advice. Men actually started paying attention to their spouses in Western culture around 50 or 60 years ago, but we would not say that about the captive women of that time. Hey guys, thank you for tuning in. Consider subscribing to the channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to never miss another update from us. That being said, let's start. A man came very close to conquering the earth 700 years ago. He established himself as the ruler of half of the inhabited planet and instilled in humans a terror that endured for ages. Given that the terrible tyrant had 16 million live male descendants, he must have fathered hundreds, if not thousands of children. He is Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan had a strategy of keeping the most attractive ladies he found throughout his ruthless conquest for himself. The victory feasts of the Mongols were infamous. Huge chunks of virtually uncooked horse flesh were torn by Genghis Khan and his commanders as they watched a procession of captured females. Genghis Khan made his selections among the most esteemed women. Small noses, rounded hips, long silky hair, red lips, and musical voices were characteristics he appreciated about them. He weighed their attractiveness in carats. If he gave them a lower rating, they were transferred to his commander's tents. One time, his lieutenants were lazily discussing what the greatest pleasure life might offer. When their commander expressed his own sincerely held opinion, the general majority was leaning toward falconry because Genghis had 800 falcons. He said, "The greatest joy is to ride their horses and clutch to your bosom their wives and daughters. The greatest pleasure is to conquer your adversaries and chase them before you, to strip them of their money and watch those precious to them drown in tears." Even though Genghis Khan was known as the Khan of the Burnt Earth, the nomadic troops typically executed males and elderly men, young girls, and women. However, they were taken away with them rather than slain. By the way, if warriors were submitted, they were not executed but rather accepted for service. Considering that Genghis Khan carried out his actions by the laws of Yasi, even if harshness was a necessary component of his character at the time, his army would still find him to be a fair and able leader. Even old adversaries were respected. Contrary to popular belief, Genghis Khan's kingdom did practice some matriarchy, and some historians contend that the Mongol army actually included a sizable number of women, including both concubines and fully trained fighters. European ladies were referred because of their wide faces and unusual attractiveness to the Mongols. Therefore, captive attractive women had every opportunity to live, if not in love and peace, then at least without being humiliated or made fun of. For instance, Turkan Khatun and her family were imprisoned following the fall of Garganj, the capital of the Khanate of Khorasan. A guardian of peace and faith, mighty Turkan, mistress of women of both realms. The offspring of the reigning family was promptly put to death, and Genghis Khan's retinue was given the harem ladies and spouses. The former Shahins and the Lady of Women's following destiny was pretty terrible. She and other Khorram's noblemen were transported to Karakorum, the Mongolian capital, as part of the prisoners' caravan. They were served the great Khan's court there. Noble Mongol warriors regularly captured women for their harems for several reasons, including the fact that doing so was seen as a sign of rank, and the fact that European women were highly prized by the Mongols. Thirdly, the Mongols felt that women seized from the enemy were the first and most important sign of victory, demonstrating the superiority of the victory over the loser. The Mongols held that a man should not be allowed to live if he is incapable of protecting his wife. Many prisoners nonetheless managed to advance in the new household, even though a concubine's duty was to serve the master without reservation. The wife of Genghis Khan's third son, who ruled from 1246 to 1248, is regarded to be one of the most renowned captives, despite not being European. After the passing of her husband, the woman had been successful in ascending to power and governed Mongolia for the whole 4 years. There is no disputing, however, that many enslaved women perished long before they were allowed to enter the harem and attain the so-called positions of concubine. Many people were brutally raped and killed by ordinary troops once villages and towns were taken, and many more committed suicide as a result. As a reward for bravery displayed in combat, it was also highly unusual for the chiefs to give the young women to the soldiers so they may enjoy themselves. Unfortunately, all ladies shared this mindset, and European-looking females were valued highly as gifts for strong warriors, even though the future of the warrior himself was uncertain and his or her risk of dying was quite high. He made use of the current situations and the available resources. However, in general, ladies who survived the amusements of the nomads were of little value to anybody. Of course, occasionally, the unfortunate survived and were dragged along with the caravan for a while. They may simply be exhausted or not even be obese when they decide to die, but despite these instances, a sizable number of Mongols continued to strive to respect women and even less desire to kill them. Given that the Mongols were fairly pragmatic people, they did not just destroy anything that may either better their financial conditions or boost their personal standing. It was advantageous for a common fighter to offer or sell a handsome hostage to his commander. The fate of the prisoners who were taken into Genghis Khan's own harem serves as a good example in this respect. Let us now discuss Genghis Khan's concubines. Some stories claim that Genghis Khan had more than 7,000 concubines in addition to his 4 official marriages. It is not so much that Genghis Khan had extraordinary sexual prowess, rather, the captive ladies, especially European women, provided an example and more evidence of the great Khans. The most attractive ladies and girls were frequently delivered to the camp after each raid so that he could choose whether to give them his devoted warlords or send them to his harem as the newest additions to his collection. In addition, despite their helplessness, the ladies in the harem were not subjected to abuse or harassment. These ladies were fed well, given the freedom to care for themselves, and if necessary, given lessons in playing musical instruments or other useful talents. Additionally, they consistently made use of a prisoner's talents, which may also be advantages. Let us now examine what Chinese General Meng Hun wrote. When our messenger, who was sent to the north, presented himself to them at the end of the welcoming ceremony, he was commanded to sit down to drink wine with his wife, Princess Leiman, and 8 concubines who were called ladies at every meal, and afterward they were also present. These concubines were of blinding whiteness and beautiful appearance. However, in the harem of the Great Khan, ladies who were distinguished for beauty or talent were given distinct treatment. Even in current times, it is hard to believe that women are addressed as ladies, but as we can see, it was a requirement back then during the dominion of the illustrious Khan, Genghis Khan. 20 abducted young women who could play musical instruments made up the whole orchestra that traveled with Genghis Khan in all of his wars. Strangely, the great conqueror had a deep affections and appreciations for music. Notably, the wives of overthrown rulers of neighboring nations frequently ended up as the Khan's concubines. According to a story, the Khan himself described the greatest pleasure for a man in this way to one of his closest colleagues. He used to say, "A man's supreme joy consists in defeating his enemies, chasing them before him, taking from them what they possessed, seeing the faces that were dear to them in tears, riding their horses, grasping their daughters and wives in his arms." In any event, allowing any female prisoners to enter the harem of Genghis Khan or simply a high ruler was simply the best solution. The Khan did grant certain concubines to his employees as rewards for excellence. One instance, when the Khan handed over one of his concubines away as a result of a prophetic dream, is well documented. It is fascinating that the Khan could justify his actions even after giving his wife away. This proves once more that women were treated with the respect they deserved throughout Genghis Khan's reign, albeit not necessarily as equal members of society. Unfaithfulness was the only offense for which a concubine may be put to death without mercy. Genghis Khan was incredibly envious of his possessions, whether or not he was in a relationship with her. These words serve as an example of all that was just spoken. In all likelihood, the captive may become the entertainment of the common warriors who, on the whole, were not ceremonial unless she was fortunate enough to become a concubine of the Mongol commanders or the Khan himself. When they were finished with her, they just murdered her, or else the poor woman would soon pass away. His right hand is said to have been gripping a blood clot when he was born. The marriage of his parents was not so pleasant, as her father forced his mother for marriage, and from childhood, this king grew up with so many diverse characteristics. This emperor from Mughal slowly conserved his name in the books of history. He is none other than Genghis Khan, and today we will show you the unspeakable punishments of Genghis Khan. So stay tuned till the end. Hey guys, thank you for tuning in. Consider subscribing to the channel and don't forget to press the bell icon to never miss another update from us. That being said, let's start. Even in times of war and murder, the Mongols upheld a set of honor codes despite their reputations for mass slaughters and killing its enemies mercilessly. From modest beginnings, the Mongol monarch Genghis Khan 1162 until 1227 extended to power and built the greatest Terran empire in history. He conquered a sizable portions of China and Central Asia after unifying the nomadic tribes of the Mongolian plateau. His offspring continued to grow the empire, conquering distant lands like Syria, Korea, Vietnam, and Poland. When they were at their strongest, the Mongols ruled over a territory roughly the size of Africa, covering between 11 and 12 million contiguous square miles. Life of Genghis Khan at that time was violent and unpredictable, with hundreds of nomadic tribes continuously battling and stealing from one another on the Central Asian steppe. His father was killed before he turned 10. Then, to escape having to provide for them, Temujin's clan deserted his mother, himself, and his 6 siblings. When an adversary tribe poisoned his father, Genghis Khan's life as the son of a strong chieftain changed forever. The little child and his family were expelled from their home and made to forage for food, primarily consuming plants and animal carcasses they discovered along the roadways. Genghis Khan led an army against the tribe that had killed his father when he was 20 years old to exact revenge. After the Tatar army was routed, Genghis Khan began to exterminate the populations in a highly unique manner. Each Tatar man was placed in line and measured against the linchpin of a wagon, which is the axle pin in the center of the wheel. Any persons who was taller than these pins, which were 90 centimeters tall, would be beheaded. In reality, Genghis Khan's directive led to the murder of all male Tatars except the young. Back to his childhood. When Genghis Khan was 14 years old, he discovered a fish and returned it to his family, only to have his half-brother better seize it from his hands and refuse to share a bite with anyone else. Genghis Khan was so enraged that he chased his brother until he was alone and then killed him with a bow and arrow. However, Genghis Khan wasn't entirely exonerated for his first murder. History claims that his mother reprimanded him. After killing his older half-brother soon after, he became the ruler of the impoverished household. He was briefly abducted and sold into slavery by the clan that had left him, but he was able to get away. And after being recognized as the ruler of all steppe people, he ordered to replace thousands of households under the care of his relatives and allies, replacing the pre-existing pattern of tribes and clans with something more like a feudal system. Genghis defeated the Merkit using a method through which he routinely stifled the seeds of future uprisings, along with the support of strong friends and his army. He made a point of never leaving an adversary in his rear years later. Before approaching China, he would first make sure that no nomad commander was still alive to stab him in the back. The Jurchen clan's nobility was dealt with the same manner by him not long after the Merkit was destroyed. These princes, who claimed to be his supporters, took advantage of his absence to raid the Tatars and rob him of his possessions. The common people were used by Genghis and his army and servants after he destroyed the clan nobility. Genghis Khan attacked the Jin Empire in 1211. As his attentions shifted to contemporary China, an impulsive choice was made. Against the Mongols' million, the Jin Empire ruled over 53 million people. However, Genghis Khan prevailed. The Mongol invasions reached Chengdu in 3 years. The city's perimeter was surrounded by walls that rose to a height of 12 meters and covered 29 kilometers. They decided not to attempt entering because it appeared impossible. However, Chengdu was starved to death by the Mongols. Furthermore, cannibalism was rife inside its walls by the summer of 1215 due to the city's population's extreme hunger. When they finally gave up, the city was pillaged and burned by the Mongols. Genghis Khan did something unexpected when he came across the Muslim nation of Khwarezmia. He traveled by way of peace. To develop a commerce route and diplomatic links, diplomats were dispatched to the city. However, they were entrusted by the Khwarezmian governor. The ambassadors were executed by him because he believed they were involved in a Mongolian plot. He also executed the following group that they dispatched. It infuriated Genghis Khan. After making an effort to be cordial, he received dead diplomats as payment. To assault and fully destroy Khwarezmia, he assembled an army of 200,000 troops. Even after he had conquered, Khan dispatched 2 armies to burn down every castle, village, and farms they could find to make sure that no trace of Khwarezmia remained. Samarkand was one of the cities he encountered while on his murderous rampage through the Khwarezmian Empire. He was in a furious rage and prepared to attack and obliterate everyone who stood in his way. In his rage, he also told the locals that he had been sent there by God himself to punish them. He had just returned from the city of Otrar, where he had just killed Inalchuk with molten silver. Then he completely wiped off the whole populations, wiping the city off the map. It wasn't just wanton cruelty, this was ruthlessness. The king sought to eliminate any elderly, competing nobles who would serve as a focal point for resistance, arm himself with a military army, and most importantly, smash the notion of clan loyalty that encouraged fragmentations by unifying all the nomads in individual obedience to his family. Though at one point Genghis Khan reigned over about 1 million people after uniting the steppe tribes, he eliminated inherited aristocratic titles to quell the traditional reasons for tribal conflict. He also outlawed the buying and selling of women, the enslavement of Mongols, and the executions of cattle thieves. Furthermore, long before the concept of religious freedom spread abroad, Genghis Khan oversaw the establishment of a writing system, carried out regular censuses, extended diplomatic protections to foreign ambassadors, and permitted it. But ultimately, the fabled ferocity and terrible deeds of Genghis Khan are the subjects of numerous legends. A common theme throughout them is how the Khan would ask foes to submit, and if they refuse, they would destroy them together with their families and friends. The Khan took great pride in his deadly outbursts and believed that the fear they caused should help him gain more foes without losing any of his soldiers. These terror tactics were routine for the Khan, but many people were unaware that if you offended him personally, he might be even more ruthless and severe than you could ever imagine. Even though marriages were formed as part of geopolitical alliances, love was still present. The husband of one of Genghis Khan's daughters, Tokuchar, was adorned by her. As his favorite son-in-law, Genghis Khan also adored him. His widow desired retributions after Tokuchar was murdered by a Nishapuri archer. Everyone in Nishapur was killed when Genghis Khan's army attacked. One estimate puts the death toll at 1,748,000. It is heart-wrenching to stare, but even dogs and cats were hunted down and killed, as were women, kids, and newborns. When Genghis Khan's daughter wanted to make sure that no one got away with just a mere wounding, she ordered that they be decapitated and arranged their skulls into pyramids. One legend claims that he even changed the course of a river so that it would pass by the emperor's birthplace to ensure that it would never once again be shown on a map. Genghis Khan is not often as well remembered as other cruel historical rulers. Many people overlook the fact that the great Khan's destructive spree left such a trail of devastations, and that out of habit. He routinely destroyed vast populations and entire empires. Stalin was more savage than the Nazis, according to recent claims made by several persons, who estimate his death toll to be about 20 million. The violence of the Mongols under Khan's command, however, is far worse than anything he could accomplish. The Khan was happy to brag about these numbers whenever he got the chance, and historical estimates put his death toll at around 40 million. The Khan, however, was not a killer who killed without mercy. He was an exceedingly violent murderer. He always allowed his enemies to join his empire first, since he sought to have the upper hand without really striking anyone. Before going on a rampage and massacring their inhabitants and everything that had ever been a part of their culture or life, he even dispatched multiple emissaries in some cases. Simply join him or perish was the Khan's order. Genghis Khan forced many to pay with their lives, along with the lives of their whole populations, for choosing to disobey this order. So, what do you think about this emperor? Tell us your thoughts in the comments below. To appreciate our efforts, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.